I know there's one item which middle-income Singaporeans worry a lot about, and that's cars. And car-related taxes are something which the government studies very carefully. I would acknowledge that at one time the car-related taxes were a significant burden on car owners, and many of them are middle income, because our car ownership taxes had become so high. We needed to control the number of cars. We pushed up the ARF, excise duty, so many items. And the amount per car was very high and was disproportionate. So we discussed this when we had the Economic Review Committee a few years ago, which I chaired. And we decided to make a major policy shift, to shift from ownership to usage, so that we could bring down the ownership taxes, ARF, excise duty, and so on. We could issue more COEs so that they will be more affordable. Then we could enable more people to afford cars. But to do all these good things, we would have to push up ERP so that we can control traffic jams on the roads. And in fact, we have moved decisively on that. I put together some figures to show you. It's easiest if I show you on a graph. But if you compare 2000, before we moved, and 2008, where we are today, you will know how far we have come. In 2000, the government collected $6 billion in vehicle-related revenues. $6 billion is a huge amount of money. It's like 2 or 3 times the amount of GST we collected in that year. Because we have changed policy by 2008, the amount has come down. Half, $3 billion. So we've given, effectively, we have saved Singaporeans about $3 billion of tax. And this includes everything. But to do this, we've had to push up the ERP by how much? In 2000, that's all the ERP there was, $80 million. This tiny sliver at the top of the whole stick. This year, after a lot of ERP adjustments, we've doubled it. It's $160 million, but still very small compared to the total amount of road taxes which are collected. And despite this, in fact, we have still made this big reduction in the road taxes which we have collected, which is savings to Singaporeans. And because of this savings, therefore, more households have been able to own cars. In 2000, there were about 320,000 households owning cars. Since then, in the last 8 years, the number has gone up. Now, 430,000 households have owned cars, which is about 1/3 more, 100,000 households. I think this is something which is worth trying to do because many Singaporean households want to own cars, and we've been able to enable more of them to do so. How have we been able to do that? By bringing down vehicle taxes. And how have we been able to do that? This little red sliver here, by pushing up the ERP. This is in terms of overall gross numbers, billions. But if you are buying an individual car, one household, one car, you can see the difference. So I have chosen as an example a 1.6-liter car, typical Toyota Corolla. It was there in 2000. It is there this year. In 2000, how much do you think it cost to buy a Toyota Corolla all in? $110,000. This year, same car, in fact the salesman will tell you it's a better car, the price has gone down to $64,000. And this is mainly because the government taxes have come down, because the OMV has remained about the same. It's about 19,000 before, now it's 16,000 now. So basically, the government taxes have made the cars a lot more affordable. So the result of this is that there are more cars around us. You can see it, HDB car parks getting more crowded. You can see it on the roads. And therefore, because of this year we've had to increase ERP charges. I know many people are upset by these ERP charges, but we have to see the bigger picture. Because in fact, the ERP charges are enabling us to benefit Singaporeans so as to reduce the burden on you and to enable more Singaporeans to own cars. So when we had to make the adjustment this year, we considered it very carefully. How should we do this without increasing the burden on Singaporeans? And we worked out an ERP package, not just raising the ERP or putting more gantries, but reducing road tax at the same time so as to offset it and overall to bring down the cost. And let me show you how this works. Before the package, let's take the 1.6 litre car again, probably a Toyota, but could be another one. Before the package, the ERP was $122. After the package, it's gone up nearly $200. So it looks very frightening. But in fact, if you consider the road tax which you have to pay and which we have adjusted, you used to pay $874 of the road tax, and now it's come down to $744. So the net effect is that you have a saving. In fact, you're saving money rather than out of pocket because of the ERP changes. How much? Let's do the sums. ERP increase, $76. Road tax reduction, $130. Net savings, $54. So overall, there's a net saving from this package. So we have not increased the burden on Singaporeans. We've actually reduced the burden on Singaporeans by some. The trouble is, people may not realize or remember how much road tax they are paying, or even worse, how much road tax they paid last year. And sometimes they may not be the one to pay it. I asked one driver how much road tax she paid because she was complaining about the gantries she went through and the beeps which she heard. So she thought a while, and then she said to me, "I'm not sure, I have to ask my husband." Because she didn't pay the bill, her husband paid the bill, and I'm not sure even when the husband paid the bill, he noticed that it was smaller this year. And furthermore, when the husband pays the bill, there's no beep beep. But when the wife drives the car, each gantry, one beep. So that is a problem, and I think that's part of the reason why people are not happy. And so we have to draw the connections and get people to understand that actually the middle-income Singaporeans have benefited from government policies. But we haven't only thought about road tax and car drivers, because the point of all this is to have a system which will work for all Singaporeans. And that means improving our public transport. So together with pushing up the ERP, we are building more rail lines. We have more trains running, about 800 more trips every week. So the waiting times have come down. The overcrowding during peak hours has come down. Bus service are getting improved. We are making the transfers more convenient and cheaper because the transfer rebate will go up. So we are doing many things. We can't, in the end, have every household in Singapore own a car like in America. That's not possible. But what we can do is to have the roads free-flowing and a first-class public transport system for everybody. Besides cars and public transport, we also have to pay attention to the wider needs of the public. And you can get a good sense of what the public is worried about by looking at the mix of Meet the People session cases which the MPs hold. I do my own MPS from time to time. The MPs do regularly. And I can tell you what we find. Not many job seekers, unlike during the last recession, because there are a lot of jobs to go around. There are some hardship cases, but we have a lot of schemes to help them. We've got vouchers, you've got ComCare, you've got CCC schemes, CDC programs, and so on. I talked about some just now. But there's one worrying trend in the MPS cases, and that is there are more and more people looking for HDB rental flats. And in 1 year, the number of applications have gone up, tripled. And now they form the bulk of our MPS cases. The biggest group is people looking for rental flats. Many, many reasons. HDB is building more rental flats, but if we look into the applications, not all of those who apply for rental flats are truly needy. And HDB gave me some examples. I show you one, where a woman aged 60 was applying for a rental flat. And she had 3 children. 2 of them live in private property. And the children wrote down, "Don't worry, we will jointly hire a maid to look after our mother. Please, can she have a rental flat?" I think families must have their problems, otherwise they would not go to look for MPs or HDB for help. But I think that for this group of people, rental flats are not the right solution. Instead, they should look for other viable alternatives. They can rent out a room, they can even rent out the whole flat, move in with their children. We're going to have the lease buyback scheme for the 2-room and 3-room flats, which is going to be implemented next year. Or they could sell their flat and move into a smaller flat, or move into a studio apartment, also with a short lease, and therefore free up some money. So there are various ways they can solve their problems, but I think we have to manage this rental flat problem. And MND and HDB will be reviewing the scheme for rental flats so that we can keep it an effective safety net for the people who need this, the minority of genuinely needy families who have not only no income, but also no assets and also no family support. So I've talked about the poor, I've talked about the middle income, I've talked about those who need housing, rentals. I think for the vast majority of Singaporeans, we've provided comprehensive measures in the budget. Most people do not realize how much they are getting. And as I said in the Chinese speech just now, if you take a 3-room flat, a low-income household, say an elderly couple with 1 child working, they are getting this year from the government $5,000 all in, which is much more than any increase in their cost of living. And if you take a middle-income household, 5-room, let's say middle-aged, working parents, 2 children, which is a typical profile, they get not a small sum either, about $3,400. And that's not counting any personal income tax rebates which they may be getting. So I think we've done a fair amount to help Singaporeans, but inflation has turned out higher than expected, especially electricity and fuel prices. And the economy is a bit more uncertain than the outlook at the beginning of the year. So I think after looking at the budget position, we can do a little bit more. There's a second installment of the growth dividends coming on the 1st of October. We will increase this by 50%. And because electricity is such a heavy bill now, and some people's bills have gone up by 100%, even more. So this year's You Save rebates, we will also push it up by 50%. Which means for a 3-room household, like the one I mentioned earlier, they'll get about $500 more all in. And a 5-room household will get about $200 more. And overall, this is going to cost us $250 million to the government, $250 million. If you add it to all the other things we are doing, I think it will help Singaporeans see us through this period. But I would say, please don't think that Hong Paos are going to solve this problem. We can't give Hong Paos all the time, and giving ourselves Hong Paos does not help address the problem of the oil producers becoming richer and Singaporeans becoming poorer.